Welcome to Financial Investing Radio, where you'll learn the secrets for consistent, high-probability returns in the financial markets for additional income to change your life. Grant creates consistent, high-probability trading systems for the financial markets and has applied them over the past 5 years. He's only recently started sharing these tried and true market secrets. As a gift to listeners, Grant is offering his high-probability indicators for free. Go to financialinvestingradio.com and download yours today. Now, here's your host and trading veteran, Grant Larsen.
Hey everybody, this is Grant Larsen. Thanks for joining another episode of Financial Investing Radio. It's another beautiful morning here, and the markets have made some great moves this week. You know, I was thinking back to when I was a kid. We lived in Northern California for a while, and I loved that place. It was just outside of Sacramento. We had a lot of fun with easy access to the mountains there and the lakes and the rivers in the area. One of the things my dad did was grow a garden. Now, he was an expert at this, as he himself spent some time farming as a kid when he was growing up. Anyway, one day we were weeding in the garden. Now, I hated doing that. And as we were weeding, my dad asked me to do something else besides weeding. But I didn't want to do it. I mean, I was already weeding, which I hated to do. So why would I want to do one more thing that I didn't want to do? At least that's what was going through my mind. So I did something really stupid, and I talked back to my dad. I was about 6 years old at the time. So my dad patiently asked me to stop talking back and to go do the additional thing that I didn't want to do. Instead, I talked back to him again. He stood up and started walking towards me. So the thought entered my mind that I could outrun him. So I stood up and started to run across our backyard. He tried to catch me. I realized that if I jigged to the right and then, cut back to the left, he couldn't catch me. He couldn't turn as fast as I could. So I did this for several turns, and it seemed to be working well for me. So then I had another thought. Hey, if I can beat him cutting back and forth like this, I bet I can beat him in a full-out sprint, right? So, it seems to be, when you're doing something stupid, often the next one or two thoughts in your head are often just as stupid. So, I wasn't thinking about the consequences, right? Like, where was I going to eat later in the day? Or where was I going to sleep that night? Or, how was I going to fend for myself and generate income and provide for myself? But I wasn't thinking about any of that. So I started off for the back corner of the house, and I beat him to it. And all I had to do was to make it to the front yard and then off to freedom down the street, right? Or so I thought. So as I turned the corner at the front of the house, he caught a hold of my collar and picked me up off the ground. And my little legs were still moving in the air, and all of my dreams of freedom, vanished before my eyes. So, boy, was I ever being stupid. Now, the markets are actually a little bit like that in that, when it runs back and forth, right, makes a quick, cut up and then a quick cut down, it's hard to catch. We refer to that as being a choppy market. But once it stretches out into a direction, it's actually a bit easier to catch. So there are some characteristics of sideways and choppy action that actually can become profitable. But before we get there, we're not going to look at that. What we need to practice is putting into our mind two modes of the market. So the first mode is choppy mode, right? Kind of like me running back and forth and making it hard for my dad to catch me. The other mode, number two, is the trending or trendy action. And kind of like as I started to stretch out and move in more of a single direction, he was able to catch me much easier. So the skill that we need to practice is, successfully identifying each of these modes. When am I in one mode versus the other mode? So I'm not talking about, where we look at a chart of some stock or some other instrument and, being able to see when it trends and when it stops, that's actually pretty easy to do. We make investment decisions when we cannot see what is beyond the right-hand side of the chart. So we actually need to develop the skill and practice in identifying our current market conditions and the probabilities of that continuing in that particular market direction, but where we can't see it, right? It's on the right-hand side of the chart because time hasn't passed yet. So let's practice this together. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to get a chart of something that you want to invest in or trade in. Now, if you don't have a trading or an investing account, or you don't have the trading tools, you can just open a web browser and go to one of the free sites like stockcharts.com. That's stockcharts.com. Now, I don't have any particular arrangement with them. There's multiple sites. It doesn't really matter. It's just one I've used before, and it's free. So if you open that up in your web browser right now, once you get to that site, or within any of your trading tools that you have, on this particular site, if you go towards the top of the page, there's a place where you can enter the symbol for what you want to trade, right? It might be Apple or IBM, or for this example, I'm going to use SPY, SPY. So if you have that up, enter SPY. So put that in the top of the chart, hit enter, or I think there's like a go button on there. Click that. This is going to bring up a daily chart for SPY. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do first is observe the trending days, right? So you can clearly see them, right? Prices going a certain direction. And of course, observe the choppy or the sideways days as well. What do you observe in each of those? What are the unique characteristics? Now, think about it for a minute. Now, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. There's 3 observations I'm going to add to your list. All right? So if you got your pencil and your paper, start thinking about it. Here's observation number 1. On the sideways days, the highs and the lows of the day, all right, they stay very close to the previous day's highs and lows, right? Can you see that? So if you stop for a minute and train your eyes to observe the behavior of choppy days, what else do you see? Right? So write down your observations. For example, here might be another one. How many days does the SPY go sideways before it begins to trend? Right? It's just start capturing those things. Okay, these will be little observations that will help us later. All right, so that's observation number 1, right? Which is what are the characteristics of sideways, choppy times in that market. All right, characteristic or observation number 2. For days that are trending up, the close of the day is above the close of the previous day. That kind of makes sense, right? So take a minute and train your eyes to recognize that. Look really close at the bars or the candlesticks, and then recognize that the close of that day is actually above the close of the previous day. All right. What else do you observe about trending days? And be sure to write down your observations. Okay, so observation number 3, for days that are trending down, then the close of the day is below the close of the previous day. So, for example, how many days does it tend to trend in one direction before that trend stops? So take a moment to analyze that and get to know this. See, one of the key points here is to pick one thing to invest in and get to know it well. And then to be able to answer these kinds of questions, as well as other questions about that. So take a moment, write down what are the things you observe. How many days does it tend to go in one direction before that direction stops? How many days does it tend to go sideways? And take a moment to write that down about the SPY or whatever you might be trading. In this case, SPI. All right, so just using the observations that we talked about, now take a piece of paper. It may need to be a color piece of paper so that the light of the monitor doesn't let you cheat. Or you can actually use another browser or window on your computer and do this as well. But the point here is we want to cover up up the majority of the days on the right side of this SPY chart that we're looking at. Because what we want to practice is we're going to look at the days that are leading up to the edge of your paper or your browser, right, wherever you've covered it over. And using the 3 observations we wrote earlier, what would you expect the next day or 2 days to do, right, which you can't see because you covered it up. Now, look at those 3 observations. Look at the price action and those bars right up to the edge of the paper or the browser, and then ask yourself, now let me apply these 3 observations and ask yourself, what do I think the next day will be? And continue to practice estimating the behavior of the days that you can't see. So cover it up, look at the 3 observations, say, I think it will go up, or I think it will go down. Then you move the paper over 1 day, exposing 1 candle, say, how did I do? Right? And keep practicing that. Now, as you go through this, there will be some additional observations that you'll make, right? You'll discover some additional things. So write this down. Now do this over and over again. We'll call this paper trading, right? So we're not going to do it with real money, but what we want to train is our eyes and our mind to see the patterns, right? So practice this a lot. Write down your observations, because this is going to provide the basis for some rules in the future. All right, let's try some other observations. Do you notice anything about the range of movement, meaning the size of those candles or the bars? For example, I'll give you a hint. When are the candles or the bars longer or larger, and when are they smaller? What do you see? And often what you'll find, it's not a guarantee all the time, but often what you'll find is that the bars are smaller, meaning they're shorter in their size, when the price movement has slowed down or when it's going sideways, when it's choppy. This is important to note. So get to know the general or the average size of the movement that the bars are when price is trending, and compare that to the general or average size of the movement of the bars when price is going sideways. So take a moment to do some calculations there. So one of the keys that you want to do, and this is simple, right? We don't have to overcomplicate it. Keep a running average of the several previous days, like 3 to 5 days is a good number. So when you're actually trading, so let me back up. 2 things you want to do. Look at what's the average size of those price ranges when it's choppy. Get that number written down. Take 3 to 5 days and calculate the size. And then do 3 to 5 days and when it's trending and compare the differences. Now you got those numbers. Now what you do is you keep a running average of the previous 3 to 5 days. So you cover up your piece of paper with your piece of paper. And what you're doing is you're taking an average or a running average. So, and it changes every day, right? Because you're just looking at the previous 3 to 5 days. And what you'll notice is you're looking to see how far price is moving. And as you calculate it, you'll notice that the average distance of the price movement on any given day increases as it's trending and decreases as the price movement slows down. But confirm this for yourself. Doing this kind of quantification helps our brain connect to what we're seeing with our eyes. All right. Now, typically what I do is I take the open and the close of each day. That's the important sort of price movement. All right. So that's the range or the distance that you're calculating. You take that distance for 3 to 5 days. Take the average of it using simple average math. And as you slide to the right over time, you watch that number change, and as it's going sideways, that number will get smaller. And as you start to move towards trending, it'll start to increase. You start to think, okay, all right, I'm seeing that price is closing higher, for example, and also the candles are expanding. There's a possibility we're moving into a trending pattern here. Now, this there's some simple tools to use, right? You could certainly use a calculator or Excel spreadsheet to do something like this. It doesn't take much to pull that off, all right? Now, there are other factors to consider besides this exercise before you actually trade or invest, but this part needs to become second nature, right? We need to train ourselves and our minds to look quickly at the current price activity And it sets a tone for other factors that need to be reviewed, which we will discuss later. But this is a first step, right, in identifying what kind of market am I in. Am I a choppy market right now, or am I in a trending market? And it will help you to know when to stay out or when to enter, all right? It's not the only thing. Now, as you see price move out of a choppy area, you will often see that it comes back to the choppy area and touches it before it takes off in a trending direction. Now, this is an important observation to make, so take a look for that, right? Look on your chart and look for the patterns of going choppy, starts to break out, might hesitate and come back for a little bit, and then shoots off in a trending direction. Now, developing the skills to recognize the areas where price is choppy, as well as when it's moving beyond that into a into a trending area. That's a key step. It's a key skill to learn to catch the market. So, when I was a kid, as I rounded the corner of the front of the house, I could see some clear spaces ahead of me, that I could run to. Now, interestingly, of course, my dad could see that too. And he was able to catch me as I started to break out into stride there as I was heading off for freedom, in a trending direction, right, as I broke out of my choppy action. So, now, practice identifying the same thing on your charts. Look for the choppy, look for where it breaks out and starts to stretch its legs. That's a good place to catch the market. I really appreciate you listening. Until next time, avoid the chop and don't talk back to your dad. My name's Grant Larsen, and I'll catch you in the next episode.
Thank you for joining Grant on Financial Investing Radio. Remember to subscribe and leave feedback. Don't forget to download your free high probability indicators before your next trade. Visit financialinvestingradio.com now.